Put down the imagined burdens.
Well, that sounds like a good idea. I guess don't get in the way of yourself.
In other words, what you suffer is what you don't put down. Everything is a step on the path of always passing. Love, love. Come what may, go what may. Okay. Who knows? When nothing remains, this is the naked path. Who walks this way? The result of already balanced is good practice. Waking up to empty fullness is also good practice. We are the in-between. We are in the in-between. Now is always in-between. In between life and death. Question?
So while we're in between, we seem to need to get along, we need to work, we need to survive. And it seems like for most of the population, there is some...
That's because they're not in between. They're on one side or the other. Yeah.
So how does...
So everybody has to get to a concept that enables them to practice being in between. This and that. This or that.
Would that be your only recommendation for practicing, for closing the gap between work and practice, or finding time to practice at work, or making some other adjustment?
Well, work is not outside you. That's another thing that's very important. If work is outside you, then you have a problem. So, because then there's the inside you. So we have to understand that. These dilemmas that are imagined and or assumed that become reality for peace, and not a reality that is making things work, but a reality that maybe results in dysfunctionality and a schism. So the work, firstly, is your karma, right? It's the conditions, your work, what you choose to do, what you can do, what you're interested in doing. All of these things are your karma. I mean to say it's part of your stream. Stream of things already done, things already understood, things already put out into some kind of motion. And family karma, the ancestral flow and the ancestral stream is part of that process. See? And we respect that. So you have to determine as an individual, what of your family karma or the gifts or talents or inclinations that you have or tendencies or urges or desires that you have, ambitions, let's say frustrations, all of these things are usable. See? Because they will use you. A lot of what we do out here when we are not conscious in a certain way is using us. We're being subject to that, and it moves us, and then we become that, we identify with it, and then it becomes an issue that either works for you or doesn't work for you. So it's never the thing outside, it's always the one inside that determines to what degree there's a clearance to be able to work and get the job done without conflict, without concern, without schism. So that's what spiritual practice is for, to collapse the sense of the schism, the dilemma, collapse the dilemma. You do what you do. See, freedom is a spiritual exercise, an exercise in freedom. And not just under certain conditions, but it's supposed to become a realized way of life, so that what is happening is that you're living the freedom. See, you're living this spiritual exercise. I mean, that's what your practice is. See, finding spirit in everything, at every moment. And so then, the practice that seems to be wisest for people is to be able to breathe what it is, walk the path. It's a native process. We have to walk the path of beauty, and you have to be the path of beauty in order to walk it properly. You have to know what that is, that you are what that is. See? And then that's what carries you wherever you are, but you're never separated from what that is. You bring that everywhere, to everyone, as a reality. So it's called, being the practice, being the being of the practice. Or doing the practice of no results. No results. And then everything gets done. So it's a paradox that's useful to calm the mind, so that you're in the intervals, you're in the in-between. The idea is to get to the safedom of the in-between. So you're not caught up in the extremes and then suffering that as a result, and then believing it, and then being your worst enemy when you don't have to be. Spiritual retreat then is the recreation opportunity that enables you to adjust and adapt yourself to your karma, your family karma, because it's not going to be karma of anybody else's family. It's your karma coming from within you that seems to create your time and space journey. Your time and space in this world, on the earth at this time. It's all sacred, depending on what you sense the results are, and then determine from the results how you value those results as either good or bad, or useful to you, or let's say destructive to you, in a manner of speaking, or disintegrative to you, or humiliating to you, or offensive to you, or whatever it is. See? And then you more or less use that as a guideline to go to the next set of circumstances or situation for you. So we move from point to point, but what I'm talking about is you have to have something already there that's understood, the certainty of being, egolessness, or the in-between. And from that position of piloting the ship, move forward and accept things that are already created, and then that you need to work with as a step to readjust for yourself, for, let's say, developmental purposes and or, let's say, advancement purposes. So say, my blood karma brought me to this position, now I want to capitalize on it. Say, from this position, this situation, I want to create something. Say, extend it perhaps for a step up or step into some other, say, area of interest, or in this case, obligation. It could be an area of obligation for you. You feel obligated to do something. As in some cases where people are sort of like, you can say, move to get a divorce so that they can step up. I'm not sure they always step up. It depends on how carefully they read the situation and move forward. So how much wisdom they bring to the situation, so that their next move, their next relationship is actually a step up rather than more of the same thing with a new face on it. Mm-hmm.
Can you say a little more about no results?
No results. Well, I think that speaks to a certain level of genius, in fact. Say, genius, see, no results. See, the plus element, genius. No results. Not about the results. There are results, and they can be great, but it's not about the results, because if you're in the creative, that's all you do is create. You're not just creating a result. That's not the creative. See, the creative is not satisfied with one result. The creative is more part of the, let's say, universal mind or the infinite mind. It says, no. It's just more is better. More and more and more and more variations, more and variations. And variation is part of the infiniteness of the mind. See, more might mean you can get enough of one thing, but that's not the end of anything. See, it's an ongoing openness to the infinite creative. See? And so that's being in the in-between. And then you have that because you're trusting the creative potential, the infinite creative, to do what it needs to do through you. And as I've stated in earlier talks, that the person is not the genius. Genius is a separate component. But with ordinary genius, which is really about karmic skills, then that and the person are the same thing. See, that is the ego. See, that's the thing that needs the applause, that needs the awards, and all the rest of that. See, to prove to itself it has value, worth, or whatever. Not that genius really cares for that. Okay. The genius is the creative, and the creative creates of itself in a manner of speaking. See, and for the truly creative, and they understand what this is, and they work with the unconscious in harmony, let's say, in good resonance with that, and then the superconscious. If a person can reach that deep or that spaciously, then it's the same thing. See, it's cooperation with that which is. So it's not self-created and self-defined and self-limited only. See, it's not that. It just is what it is. See, and the creative understands that, even though they have a self, they have an individuality. So the individual is a lens through which the infinite is allowed to come through and work through, regardless of the particular occupation or the function that it has. And that's true of, the creative, universally speaking. Regardless whether or not you're into the military or the government or, let's say the artistic or the scientific or the philosophic, it doesn't matter. It's the same. It's just the creative is the creative.
And for somebody who may not feel as though they're being creative on a day-to-day basis, maybe they're transcribing notes, or maybe they're making phone calls or something like that. Mm-hmm. You mentioned breathing, what it is. Can you describe what that might be like?
Yeah, it's a selfless doing. It's not as much a thought process as maybe others have to concern themselves with. They have to think it out because they don't see results. So the results determine what it is for the individual. So if it's a natural, like no problem process where it's coming together by itself, it seems, then we're talking about breathing it. It's breathing. Yeah. Everything is being put into it that it needs to process in order to show the results. Yeah. It's a breathing process. And then for some people who don't operate from that, then they have to open themselves to that place where they are at the breathing process level of what it is. Yeah. So that it's less effort in the beginning, and most endeavors there's effort. And then after a while, as I've stated many times relative to music and other things, you reach a point where your openness to what it is enables something like what it is to take over. And it does. And I think training in every area of, let's say, functioning brings you to that place, okay, where you have a natural way of doing it, whether you're a cab driver or not. You kind of let the cab drive itself, right? You let the cab find the place, right, so to speak, or an elevator person, you go into this sort of, let's say, neutral level of awareness where it happens with no problems, hardly an effort, say, almost automatic, say, natural. But we're not talking about just pushing buttons here and there in that sense, mechanically. So, talking about something that opens up the creative channels, so that something new is coming through. It's not just taking you from A to B particularly, but we're talking about something a little bit more open than that. And That is what the creative implies. And it could be anything and everything, but we're also implying something that is being added to what already is, not just doing what already is. Right? So, something pushing from the deeper, pushing through, see, to come out. Not just maintaining things, and just surviving in a sense. I mean, that's important. We need to respect that. So that every level of it is considered sacred, because you got to start somewhere. So the idea is have a sense of what the vision is for yourself. That enables you to see that, well, yeah, you can do more, but then it can do more if you know what it is and you're open to what it is. And I think that's really a very curious place. Itness, very curious. For those who understand it, nothing needs to be said on it.
So there seems to be America seems to be becoming, at least in pockets, fascinated with Tibetan culture and Tibetan spiritual practice, Buddhism, meditation. There are monasteries in New York and Vermont, and
well, the Nazis was extremely fascinated with Tibet. I mean, that's where they got the Nazi symbol. You see, they were really fascinated with it because somewhere along the line, it seems, I'm not a historian, I don't really track these movements, but there was a fascination with the fact that there was like some kind of super knowledge there. Say, super knowledge. Of course, the knowledge that they had and have is just basically the knowledge of realization. It wasn't a certain type of superior knowledge that was ego-based, militant, ego-based. See, manipulative, aggressive. See, it wasn't that kind of super knowledge. See. There's a certain form of super knowledge that had to do with spiritual enlightenment, just to use a maybe overused word, but I think that it's warm. It's a warm one about it, and light, being part of the light, and being light-hearted and light-bodied and light-minded about life, so to speak. And beyond that, more profoundly, having a sense of wisdom that is like formidable, say, right? Profound sense of wisdom. And that's what the highest of the Tibetans represented, a certain sort of profoundness in terms of intelligence. So we're talking about geniuses of consciousness. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. So there is a lot to learn from that, whether you're American or Puerto Rican or African or Asian, it doesn't matter. The whole world can benefit from that kind of level of spiritual integrity and spiritual intelligence. There's no question about it. That's why it's such a magnet today. Mm-hmm. We find all the Americans, I mean, people who probably need it the most, are going to it to help balance their universe, their sense of reality. And it's wise to do that, and inevitable. So, it's very important. Yeah. Especially in that form, because if we look at the example of the Dalai Lama, he's a scientist. I mean, he's always hanging out with scientists. He's in all these science forums throughout the world, because scientists are the people that he likes. So here's a monastic scientist, basically, and absolutely curious about all of it, who is also a practicing monk. See? And he's carrying the wisdom. He's a transmitter of this wisdom, and he loves it, and he's a happy spirit. So he's a good example of the positive side of what the Tibetan, let's say, treasure is to the world. He is one of those treasures. His humor is one of those gifts to everybody, And he's known hard times, so he's been through it in his own right. For those who have kept up with some of the things that have happened to his country, his motherland, and so on.
Do you feel like globally it's
we need more heart presence. The teachings that they are working from perhaps originated to some degree in India in some form, but these are native teachings, they're universal native teachings. So if we look more closely, you'll see native individuals who have awakened in all cultures, no less the native cultures, who have this sense of, let's say, awareness of the universe as such. So the universe is my witness. Boom. So the universe is having its way here. The universe is the heart of the universe. And so there are many signs throughout the world where we have individuals who have been like oracles, see. And since I come from a spiritualist family originally, then I can say that, yeah, this is native stuff. And I think in all the lines that we know, in terms of the human race, you find those who are designated, individuals who are designated as having more access to the spiritual, whether or not, scientists are privileged to have such access or not. It's really up to their karma. Some are and some aren't. Somebody like Carl Jung loved the association he had with witch doctors, because he was open to that, because he knew it was a very natural source of intelligence and knowledge and deep experience. And not that many people have such experience to be able to, let's say, draw the kind of intelligence that someone like Carl Jung had and was for his own purposes as a psychiatrist and as a master of the mind and a person who was very curious about consciousness and people suffering and their neuroses, and being associated as he was with Freud. He was a student of Freud's and collaborated with him. And so we're talking about two very deep individuals, Freud and Jung, who were given the mission of understanding and to some degree scientifically documenting aspects of, let's say, human consciousness relative to suffering and neuroses, and how to undo that. And when we're talking now about the Tibetans, we're talking about the purest medicine is self-inspection and self-introspection and self-meditation and self-realization, self-liberation. So you got to start there. You got to go back in, see, in order to understand why you are, who you are, where you are in your world and in your life. You need to sort of like reverse the tracks and understand your process, how you got here and what it is that you're creating, because of it being all about you. You're the center of it. Okay? And so this is really important that people who are curious about that understand that the whole issue, let's say the Buddhist idea or the Tibetan idea of it, is just self-mastery. That you're here, you're responsible for it. And that's why they say, well, there's no God to put your blame on. There's nobody outside you to blame. There could very well be a zillion godness, right? But you are you, and you have to be responsible for what your phenomena is. And how are you going to respond to your phenomena in such a way where you're happy and liberated and joyous, instead of miserable, suffering and competitive and aggressive and wanting to destroy everybody who's your brother and sister in a manner of speaking, but you don't feel the resonance from the heart level because you're so materialized by nature and by culturing, but you feel dead to that. You're dead to the heart. And I wonder, as again, coming from the tradition of native understanding and wisdom, even from the part of the earth that my ancestors come from, relative to, let's say, African and Caribbean influences, Spanish influences, the heart is really the most important thing. If we go immediately to let's say, the function of immediate family, that's to care for one another. And I think that should be, and I believe that culturally, that's the norm for all beings on the planet. So start with a family, learn what you need to extend to the world from your family roots. We hope those are good things. Because if they're not good things, when you get out into society, you're going to pay for it in some way or other. If it goes up against the grain, if it goes up against the laws of the, let's say, the land or the traditions of the people. So we need to know what the traditions are, what the laws are that we are, let's say, invested in, so that we can bring some harmony there, and despite the materialism, bring some spirituality and some creative intelligence to the field, so that there's more of a sense of balance, and people are then able to be in the in-between, see? And by that I mean the certainty of beingness, or egolessness, or selflessness, see, like right now, being selfless.
Do you feel like there's something essentially or critically different between the Tibetan tradition and how it is having an increasingly positive effect on the global consciousness?
Well, I think people are curious because it's a new thing for many people. But it's not really about Tibet as such. Everyone would say it's about Tibet. No. It's about wisdom. And if that's Tibet, that's Tibet. China, there's wisdom, about wisdom. If it's European and it's about wisdom, it's wisdom. If it's African, it's about wisdom, it's wisdom. If it's Native American, it's about wisdom, then it's wisdom. So we're talking about the wisdom of human nature. Okay? We're not talking about just the cultures. We have these reference points, throughout the world. Every place has its own wisdom. You just have to look for it, understand that. All the people have experience, long-term experience. There's evolution. Obviously, there's been an evolution through all kinds of darkness and lightness and epochs of this and that. And so, hopefully, we've learned enough to have some wisdom. And I think we all do respond to wisdom. Now, it depends upon what level we are at and what level the wisdom's at, and see if there's a in-betweenness there that we can say is satisfactory, or sense of emptiness, empty fullness. Okayness. So.
Do you feel like any or every form of religion is becoming obsolete in a way?
Well, the more wisdom you have, the more obsolete let's say your religion is, because you can gain more wisdom than your religion. Your religion is a starting point. I think it's a gathering point. I think often what we have in let's say in terms of religion is a situation where people are offered some wisdom and some community. And so in regards to that, then religion is a step to the universe. It's not the universe, it's a step, it's a doctrine for the most part. We'd say, yeah, they're all considered sacred doctrines, so we say, yeah, on that level they're all equal. They're supposed to bring you to a state of reverence. That means respect for life, not a disrespect for life. So then we have to question, what's the motivation of the religion? If it's destruction, I question whether that is really a religion with a heart interest, unless it's just self-interest relative to a small community population. Of course, we have evolved from the, let's say, caveman state. Let's say some of us, maybe most of us have. Maybe. I'd like to think. And so, yeah, to what degree have we evolved into some kind of heart understanding? Compassion. The word then that more or less is evidence of evolution is compassion for the beings, proper resonance and caring for the peeps. Now, of course, that's mother's care. Mother's care. They have the heart, so they were obviously, chosen properly to give birth to the race. So they're the gurus, in a sense. Mothers are the teachers, first teachers for sure. And so we have a lot to gain from our mothers, depending on our mother's state, their evolution, their, let's say, spirit, their sense of wisdom, their sense of compassion and caring for the family. But we're talking now as a first step. Did you learn from your mother what you can carry on? See, that's good. That is really positive and works for you and the community and then maybe the world at large. And then that enables us to be good mothers out here and care for other peeps. Are we being good mothers? I think that's a really good question. And is religion encouraging people to be good mothers to other peeps, to other nations, to other, let's say, members of the world? That's a big question. And if something is being, let's say, special value is being offered from the Tibetan story, the Tibetan experience, then so be it. We need it. We are a country, an American, let's say, organization here of individuals who want enlightenment. See, we want the best, and so there's no question that part of wanting the best is to fill your mind up with the best. See, wisdom is the highest and the best, whether it's Greek, whether it's Italian, whether it's Chinese, whether it's, let's say, European in any way, or, every country has it. Every country, you have your masters in every country, you have your geniuses in every country, and you have your wise individuals, your guides in every country, your higher spirits in every country that are given this mission, same mission. See, so we see that there is a cosmic agenda to give every group its leadership. See, this is pretty much the way it is. And so it's a matter of finding out whether that leadership is a benign leadership. And of course, people have to protect themselves, so that justifies why, we have been, for the most part, warring nations since the beginning. But do we have to be warring nations from here on in? It's a big question. See, what have we learned that we can, finally come to terms with having others in this so-called situation of planetary or interplanetary, we can go that far, communications and proper resonance between beings, the in-between, see? How can we sort of adjust ourselves to the in-between so we can properly heal one another and the needs of one another and satisfy these materially by certain means and or spiritually by certain means, so that there is the freedom then for all beings to be productive, having universal access to relative means.
Is violence in the name of religion ever an indication of either enlightenment or a problem with that religion or with that group of people?
I would stretch it to maybe, questionably, yeah. But I think violence, even though it's attributed or related to or relevant to or let's say born from religion, it's just violence. Violence is violence. Violence is its own nature. See? Religion is supposed to be a solution to the problem of violence. See, religion is supposed to give wisdom and understanding so that there is no war, not promote it. I think that's my take on it. See, I really feel that we're here as healers, and we have to reclaim and recover our sense of healing. And if you have to go to meditation school, if you have to go to some kind of a psychologic course or get a degree in psychology to start accessing your heart, to try to figure out how your heart's supposed to work, and you need to go through a maze or a university of theories in order to get in touch with your heart and do it. Or if you need medications, of, let's say, all sorts and colors and descriptions of all doses, then fine, do whatever you have to do, but get to the heart. Make sure that the heart is the goal, so we can finally come to terms with healing and have a good life ending. End of life, good end of life. Instead of being blown to smithereens by way of ignorance, stupidity, barbarianism, and disgrace, right? Disgrace, not grace. See, grace is a whole other quality. See, grace, see, kindness, grace, see, noble grace. Of course, people have to defend themselves, so there's always that factor. But I think there's a more important factor, and that is coming to terms with the reality of how to live sensibly, see, communicationally, openly, and with respect, with dignity. And if there's no dignity, then we don't have a common ground. And then people have to deal with, warriors being warriors as a last result. See? And so we have fallen and stayed there at that level, whereas warriors have to be warriors because that's the only solution. It's force and domination. See? That seems to be something of a prehistoric nature, and we need to correct that, because we are given the command here to make this work, okay? To heal, see, and it's up to us as individuals to step up in our respective areas, in our respective way, as good-natured humans, and want the best for everybody. And that, I think, is what the United States is about. Liberty, freedom, and justice for all. Not just the people in our boundaries, but the people of all the planet, see, Earth, see, all beings, for all beings, see. And it's something that we can do. We can provide if we, stop killing each other, see, stop being divided. We can accomplish that, see. But we haven't evolved as a community of Americans to the place where we have the same heart. See? Certainly not the same mind. See? So if we don't have the same heart, then we have problems. See? You got all these different armies going on. It's coexisting here. It's armies, right, with weaponry and all the rest of that. Just as the barbarians did from, who knows, way back in the day. See? So it's the same thing. Everybody's frozen in this function of warfare, see, conflict, see, which is not peace. It's not peace. It doesn't produce peace of mind. It keeps the defensiveness at a very high pitch, reactivity and fear, anxiety, stress at a very high pitch, which means that it's unhealthy.
You mentioned that we have some evolving to do, and it seems like one of the ways we're, as a culture, very rapidly evolving is science. And the
Knowledge. Theory and let's say practice, right? Science is a practice, right? Science is a theory, right? And
it almost seems like, in terms of organizations and organized sources of wisdom, more people are turning to science than...
Well, because science seems to be responsible for all the great products that everybody's able to buy. All you got to do is go out there, hustle some money, right? Or however you get it these days. It's all about how you get your money, and then if you have money to buy garbage or things, buy things you don't need, and then keep consuming more and more and more and more, and it's a process of let's say unconsciousness, right? Machinery. You're just buying to buy. And there's no elevation of consciousness or depth of consciousness beyond that. It's its own track. It's its own level. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it should be part of what's going on here. See? So what we need to consume is what we're really made of and who we really are. We need to consume that properly, digest that, put that to use. See? And that is the spirit. So everything is material, things, sales, and nothing about the soul. See, so we need the spirit, and the heart, instead of what's going on there, which is dominating. See, saying free enterprise and big business is ruling, and we have these manipulations going on and deceptions going on to trick people into buying things, and you're free to do that here, and so that's the nature of the kind of freedom, which is ignorance, then, that we have established as the way and the ruling sort of, I guess you might say, process here. Free enterprise. That's what it's called. Everybody's free to do what they want to do within certain parameters and laws, of course. And so we see that. And there's a dark side to it, and there's a higher, bright side to it. There's more knowledge now. People are becoming more educated more rapidly. So people can know more quickly. And this is useful, but what do you do with it? The idea is, of course, what do you do with it? And then when you have a glut of it, then people are overwhelmed by it. And then you have more knowledge, and so much knowledge, people are confused by it. And then people are impaired by it. See, they become overwhelmed by it. And that's the nature of the beast that we have created. And it's the same with, let's say, defense programs. And which are still being developed and created for, let's say, ultimate means of defense, which means destruction. And so that's something which is, I guess, the law of the land here relative to nations. They have to protect each other because they haven't become intelligent enough to realize that there's a certain futility there, that we may have bigger, more profound battles to fight as a planet in time coming. And we're wasting our resources on games between the nations, and we could be combining forces to prevent devastation of cosmic catastrophic dimensions, but we don't seem to have the common sense to do that yet, and so we're still kids in the sandbox, in a manner of speaking. And when we see what's coming our way, it may be too late to do anything about it because we've squandered our opportunity to combine resources internationally with intelligence, with respect and dignity, and with real compassion for the earth, not only our own families and our own trip as a nationality or country, but the earth is at risk here. Humanity is at risk, but we don't see that. We're too busy watching TVs and movies and see who gets the Academy Awards or the Grammys and all the rest of that, to be concerned about what's coming in towards the planet.
Is there, you mentioned that guru, that the tradition, the guru tradition seems to be on its way out.
Well, some people, maybe intellectual, would like to see it on the way out. The guru tradition is not something you make obsolete, see, because it has no formal reality. We see it in certain forms. The guru tradition is the Eastern thing. No, leadership is universal. We are by nature as humans addicted to authorities, which are gurus. A form of guru, let's say the lowest form, so a person who knows a lot. That's the lowest form of guru. So, the one who shows you more the nature of the heart, that's a higher form of guru. And then you need to know what to do with that. See? That means you have to have a certain resonance with that to be able to get that. So the guru is supposed to reveal the inner light to you. Not just show you and demonstrate to you or exhibit to you all kinds of knowledge that is like so-called inaccessible or transcendent and extraordinary. Well, we're talking about common native sense, which is pretty extraordinary and profound when you're talking about a world that's gone mad, as in the case of 2014 on Earth. It's gone mad. Right? It's madness, utter madness, and it could be worse. I hesitate to think of how much worse it could be, because it's definitely bad enough as it is for peeps, hard for peeps. Right? See, the poor are not even counted poor anymore. They don't count. They're like the lepers of the ancients. They're like non-existing peeps in a certain sense. I don't care about the poor. We only judge everybody by our own standard of accomplishment. Right? And then you're not really looking at your own family line, actually. You're not being sincere and honest about your own ancestors who were poor and had to make it. They needed help. So they had to work hard, labor, and die in the process. And so, the whole idea of the American nation was founded on, giving people a chance. Right, welcoming the immigration. Sure, it's going to pollute by some standards and affect and mix, but that goes to, I think strikes to a chord in the heart of true character. It can withstand that change and difference, can handle that. The heart can certainly handle that. We have to see that. We seem to be losing our original spirit, in a sense. I'm not saying that of everyone, but I think it's easy to understand that. This was supposed to be a beginning, see, in terms of an American contribution. Was supposed to be the land of liberty, and that doesn't exist anymore. Now it's a land of laws, right? So it's not a land of liberty in the same sense. We're not talking about anybody being free to do anything they want, and let alone just going around killing people because they're in the mood to do it, because their medications warrant it, or because their job loss warranted it, or because they're being jilted warranted it in their mind. So we're talking about the need to make people sane. And that means really, really pump the education. And if it's not coming from the top, and because if it comes from the top, it's a communistic, socialistic, whatever, demon. This is nonsense. There's no intelligence in such thinking. None whatsoever. It's really stupid. So, this should be capitalistic. This should be everything. This is America, where all forms can come together and find some kind of credibility here, and some cooperation, some respect, and some validity. Some people need help, so we should have not quite a socialist party, but something that is agreeable to us, that takes care of those peeps, to help them up. And of course, it's not like they're living on another planet. You can see if you're helping people or not. And if you are helping people, then you see the improvement, you see the advancement, and you base it upon what the evidence is, and then we're saying good investment. And that investment means we have everybody coming up to a certain level, so it's really a self-investment. It's good for the country. But if the country is now this idea, or this attitude or view of, well, no, they have to do for themselves, and that's liberty, I think, you can't apply that to your children. You can't have children that are born to you and then tell them, oh, go take care of yourself. I made it, now you make it. I don't think that's normal. I don't think that's natural, see. So we need to take care of those who come here, in a manner of speaking. But and I'm not talking about just this taboo about welfare, this prejudice, this bigotry about welfare, and assistance and support. I mean, it can all be dignified depending on how you manage it and look at the results. The idea is to be responsible for the results. But nobody cares to look at it that way. And so we do have what you see in America, which basically is kind of chaos. See? And a lot of people starving, a lot of people, walking the streets, a lot of homeless peeps. And it shouldn't be that way here. It shouldn't. And it doesn't have to be that way here. See? People need to have not even a conscience. We're not talking about that. Just have a heart. See? Do you have a heart for that? Can you have a heart for that? If you have the means. Now we're not all given the means in the same way, or the wealth in a material sense. So on my end, I have to give people some kind of spiritual idea or feeling of what it is that enables them to maybe do better from that place. Heart awareness, heart first, as I would call it. Right, the heart is the universe. Native, just basic, radical, native common sense. Not religious, not church particularly, just heart to heart, common sense and dignity. What I thought this country was founded on. People of like-minded, like-heartedness, who come together to help other peeps. And of course defend each other if they have to in the process.
Do you feel like there's a next wave or a next step in consciousness or a next form of practice that is coming soon?
Well, it's not that it's coming soon. It's been happening. It's just a matter of whether or not it emerges in a certain way and becomes popular. And that's what you're really talking about. Because here in this country, and maybe throughout the world, but no less in this country, there's everything going on here. Everything imaginable. Right? All over the sun, in the sun, and under the sun. It's all going on here. So you have the darkness to the extreme here, and you have the ordinariness to the extreme here, and then you have the super conscious to the extreme here as well. Super artistic, super scientific, super intellectual, super religious, you have it all here to the extreme. You have all the extremes here, coming from everywhere, as it should be. This is an ongoing experiment. And so the idea of the gurus becoming obsolete is nonsense. There'll always be intelligence, and that's what a guru is supposed to represent, the highest intelligence possible. And gurus are, true gurus are geniuses in their right. So when you have a genius in a certain field, you naturally make them your guru. You turn to them. You appeal to them, whether they're into science or the digital technological advancements or not. I mean, Nikola Tesla was certainly some kind of crazy guru in a manner of speaking, although he didn't see himself as that. You couldn't say he was a guru. He was a scientist. He was a pure scientist. So his mind was open to what he was here to do, and he did it to such an extreme degree. I mean, he had to be neglected and rejected because he was so extreme. He had to be put down. He was too American. He was too pioneer. And that can happen here as a paradox. You can be overqualified. You can be too American and be done in by it. Too true to the original forefathers. And you see that now in religious terms, because the forefathers were wise enough to say, hey, keep religion out of this. Say, make it private, keep it personal. Because it's a different mix. Say, it's a very different mix. And it should be, as Jesus said, right? Don't go to the synagogues and stand up there with the hypocrites. If you want to talk to the Father, go into your closet. Do it one-to-one. Make it personal. Make it real. See? Because it's in the inner. It's in the secret. The secret levels of intelligence and awareness. It's the kingdom within, not the kingdom without. Duh! How many times does it have to be said to peeps? He was into something. He was onto it. See? And that's what he had realized. That's why he knew so much more than the people. He was working from the inside out. That's what the example was. So we should all be doing that. Not as Christians, as natives, earth beings. See, in touch with the spiritual.
Are there certain ways of being, socially at least, that either predispose people for good practice or not? Say, for example, Christianity seems to have had a lot to say about homosexuality in not the best way, but
I think that's due to ignorance. You see, that's due to a lack of trust and confidence in their creator. See, right? The source of infinite possibility. See, infinite creativity, infinite, all types, all kinds, every shade imaginable, every type, all under the same. I mean, all born of the same. Right? Right. Let's say the creator. Okay, we can use that. I'd say the heart. Right? And so we're talking about family, having difference. This is a country that should ignore difference as a barrier, see? And make difference attractive. See? Attractive. Say, different flavors, unique. See? Creativity. Wow, different species here. Wow, workable. Join the party. See, a possibility here. That seems to be what the American spirit seems to have been about initially. Now, of course, the level of culture and spiritual development of the forefathers, which is no standard, really, intellectually is a good standard. Spiritually, I'm not saying it's a good standard, whether most of them were Freemasons or not. I question that. Because it should be a matter of equality, and we have to come to that level. And that's really difficult for the human to come to lift themselves up to this sense of equality, universal equality. It's like talking about the forest, heaven from our imagination. What is that? Equality. Oh, me and my neighbor's equal? No way. So we see the power of the perception of difference, and we respect that. But we have to understand what it is that we need to be equal about to make it a better universe for ourselves. Because right now it's a very difficult universe to live in. See? And weapons don't really matter. It's not about weapons right now in terms of this kind of guerrilla warfare that's going on. It doesn't matter if you have weapons. See? The weapons are going to be made obsolete because it's no longer about what you see. See? It's not about visible weaponry anymore. It's moved to another level. So you can have 100 guns, 100 cannons, 100 tanks, and it's not about that anymore. See? See? It's more sophisticated, more subtle now. And that's what our scientists and our defense geniuses have to be concerned about. See? See? Subtle warfare. See? And that's what we as Americans are up against on the defense level. See? Homeland security levels. Our problem is not what we can see, but what we can't see in this case. See? What we can't find. See? What you can't target as easily. So the game has been advanced here. See? And that's the nature of intelligence, is to continually up the ante, as they say. See? Go to the next level, see, of secrecy and subterfuge and, attack. So it's a very, very difficult time to be in, but yet, while the warriors have to be warriors and the worriers have to be worriers, the healers have to be healers, and that's not to be forgotten. See, so we cannot change these trends or these times, but we can, in a sense, we can add to these times. We can bring in the flavor of healing for those who are ready for the healing, and that's, I think, I guess you might say, a call from the heart. See, to heal. And try to enter this real understanding, a cosmic sense of one nation under Spirit.